There's a museum in Montpelier, Idaho, built inside what was once a bank. The museum is the Butch Cassidy Museum, and it's in an old bank building because it was the bank Butch actually robbed 128 years ago today. The only bank the famous outlaw knocked over still standing in this country today. And to commemorate this infamous day in Idaho's olden days, here's the story of impression left by the early hole-in-the-wall gang in your 60-second history lesson. The Oregon Short Line made Montpelier a 19th century eastern Idaho hub. With the train came money, and eventually the only bank in Bear Lake County. The Bank of Montpelier was the best in the state in 1896 when, on the afternoon of August 13th, shortly before closing time, three men rode into town. Butch Cassidy and Elsie Lay and Bub Meeks got off their horses across the street. Cassidy and Lay then walked into the bank wearing bandanas, and they forced the customers and tellers against the wall. They took the cash from the vault and valuables from the customers, and they leisurely walked out with the loot in a burlap sack. And the three men just rode casually east. That is, until one of the tellers told the deputy sheriff, who gave chase on a bicycle because apparently he didn't own a horse. But that was no match for Butch and what would be the beginnings of his wild bunch. That's this day in Idaho history in 60 seconds. Oh my goodness, yes, he didn't have a horse. It was reported the men stole between $7,000 and $15,000. They never could come up with a number. And they chose Montpelier for its proximity to the Utah and Wyoming state lines, which meant the end of a line for a posse that would be in chase. They did escape into Wyoming, where a fresh relay of horses were waiting. And the thought at the time was the money was going to be used to hire lawyers to defend another outlaw, a friend of Butch Cassidy, Matt Warner, who was facing a murder charge in Vernal, Utah. Henry Rhodes Meeks, or Bub as his friends called him, who was outside with the horses, waiting with the horses while they robbed the bank. He was later identified by the teller, and Meeks was caught, convicted a year later in Idaho. His escapades are well documented at the old state pen. It was Meeks' only time riding with Butch Cassidy, apparently, and shortly thereafter, the Wild Bunch was formed with the addition of the Sundance Kid.